So there's plastic in the trees. Have you seen it? Every day I drive up and down the Hogs Back A31 to take my kids to school, and every day there is plastic in the trees. It's everywhere. Plastic bottles, bags, building waste, this stuff that gets stuck in the trees that can only be described as film. And I'm genuinely stumped. I cannot, for the life of me, figure out how this plastic is getting in the trees. And I talk about it all the time. My kids bait me when we're driving. They say, "Mom, look at the plastic in the trees," because they know it just sends me off on one. So about 3 weeks ago, I'm driving back from the morning school run. And in front of me is this white flatbed truck, like this. And as we're driving along, 2 plastic bags fly off the back of this truck and into a tree. Now, the first thing that comes into my mind is that scene from Final Destination where the log is coming straight at the back of the car. But it's plastic. And then I'm like, the plastic in the tree mystery is solved. And the next thing I think is, this is absurd. And the more I think about it, the more I realize it's absurd because of the contradiction. Because on the one hand, we are really trying to encourage people to change their own behavior to help stop global warming. And on the other hand, there's plastic in the trees. And the fact that an open truck driving at high speeds is unintentionally littering plastic along the highways like breadcrumbs is absurd to me. Because then I think, well, what kind of signal does it send? It reminds me of the broken windows theory, which is the idea that crime and apathy go up when people stop caring about the public spaces around them. And then I think, well, what's the point? And I'm engaged. I see firsthand the effect that carbon literacy has on changing people's behavior. And so when I'm thinking, what's the point? We are on high alert. And that's why I am concerned that the greatest challenge in the world today isn't COVID-19 or climate change. It's the apathy that people like you and me feel when we drive around and we see plastic in the trees. Because it doesn't happen all at once. It's bit by bit by bit by bit, and then suddenly you're thinking, what's the point? And when you're thinking, what's the point, you're not far away from giving up your most fundamental human right, choice. And that is a shame, because collectively as individuals, we have never had as much power as we have now. Think about it. More of our population has access to the vote than at any time in history, and that is all over the world. Guess what? Democracy works. And so for the interest of my own self-preservation, I propose the challenge we need to solve right now is not plastic in the trees, it's our collective fatigue. The good news is, inspiration can save us. Now, don't roll your eyes, because I think inspiration needs a rebrand. It's so ubiquitous that it's actually kind of corny. I feel like people are a little embarrassed. It reminds me of pastel, motivational quotes. There is so much more to inspiration than meets the eye, and I know because I use it every day. And what I can tell you is this: inspiration has a predictable impact on potential, behavior, and well-being. And it's also a powerful antidote to apathy. Yet it's overlooked and we take it for granted. And I think that this is a shame, because it is one of the greatest renewable energy resources that we have. And I am a curious mind, and so I took a deep dive into the research, and this is what I learned. So according to the researchers who have spent years trying to understand how our minds are stimulated by inspiration, it happens in a process a bit like this. It's spontaneous, and then that puts you into the orange zone of activation. And as you move into blue, you start to feel this feeling of transcendence. You're elevating out of the moment just before. And then as you head into the green, your mind starts to stretch and expand. And again, if you think about it like plastic film, the more you stretch it, the more starts to get in. And this is where the vision comes. You start to see things that previously weren't there. And that acts as this supercharge into the yellow zone of motivation, and you're compelled to take action. And this is why it's renewable. The process happens again. Psychologists and researchers Todd Thrash and Andrew Elliott developed the inspiration scale, and it's used to determine how much and how often people feel inspired in their day-to-day lives. Have a think about the last time you felt inspired. Was it today? Was it yesterday? And what they found is people who score higher up on the scale have increased levels of resilience, creativity, and motivation. They also have higher levels of confidence and goal attainment, which means when you're inspired, you are more inspired to set goals. And because you are inspired, you achieve your goals. And because you achieve your goals, you set more goals. You just keep going. And it also makes you feel good. Oops, she's like, get on the dot. And this is when my inspiration got me thinking differently. Because inspiration is the spark that put people on the moon. And inspiration is resistance, helped to end apartheid. And inspiration is fake news, got Donald Trump elected. And inspiration is pure evil, dreamed up Hitler's final solution. Same force, different message. The result is always the same. Inspiration wakes people up, and it gives them this sense of purpose, and that motivates them to take action. In the name of progress and oppression. I'm a visual learner, and this is what the relationship between oppression, progress, and inspiration look like to me. Inspiration, if it helps, think of it like air. Anyone can breathe it in. That's why the message and the messenger matters so much. Because we have seen time and again how people use inspiration. Ooh, and you know what? It's not even listed on TED.com. In between insects and international development is a hole where inspiration should be, which I think is ironic because the research shows us that inspiration is the reason an idea is even worth spreading in the first place. But there it is, missed. And we've seen how it's been used to slow down progress and instill fear and galvanize hate on unprecedented scales. Why? Because when you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, inspiration is the best remedy. And I don't know about you, but this really rings true. I heard this from Sara Ramos, who is a founder that we work with at Inspiration Space, and we were preparing for her pitch, and she heard this from one of her clients. And it felt like a punch in the gut. It really resonates because it's true. The good news is, it doesn't have to be that way. We can take this force and use it for our own goals. I promise you, I see what inspiration does to motivate people and to move them beyond what they think is possible. And it's actually really simple. It's as simple as yes and. In improv, the yes and method is used to build on a story. It opens the door to new ideas and new possibilities. Yes, but closes the door. Now tell me if you can't hear the difference between these two. Yes, but I'm only one person. What can I do? And yes, and I'm only one person. What can I do? It just hits different. And when I think yes, and the plastic in the trees all of a sudden my mind snaps open, and I'm moving above the practicalities of the situation, and I'm starting to stretch and expand, and I'm starting to see things that previously weren't there. And then that motivates me to take action, which is why I literally changed my talk a week and a half ago to talk to you about the plastic in the trees, because I think that it really matters. And this is the beauty of yes and. You never know what's possible. I can tell you that one of the things that I love most about inspiration is how it reminds you that you have choice. Once you are inspired, you can choose to act or you can choose to stand still, and I will tell you about when I did both. It was the 2016 US election, and the person that I thought would win lost. And having been here for almost 20 years, I have stayed awake for every single election, and this year I went to sleep. And I went to sleep because I was so apathetic and I was so complacent because of all the isms that had come up that I broke my ritual and I went to bed. And it just felt like a punch in the gut because I didn't vote. And I didn't vote because I was checked out. Flash forward to the inauguration and the women's marches, and my social media feed is alive with all of this passionate rage, and I'm like, yes! Like, what do I do? Because being a keyboard warrior feels really disingenuous at the best of times, especially when you haven't voted. It's like, talk about closing the door after the horse has bolted. And then I remembered the yes and trick, and I thought to myself, yes and, what can I do? And everything changed from there, because what I realized was that I had skills and I had passion and I had problems that I could see that were right in front of my face that were symptomatic of the greater blob that I was so upset about, and I could do that. So in actual fact, I didn't have to change the world and I didn't have to try and save the world, I just had to save me. And 12 months later, Inspiration Space was born. I DIY'd the website in a day because the other thing to know about inspiration is it's amazing for your focus and your approach motivation. And since then, I have helped so many people go beyond what they think is possible simply by getting them to think yes and. Yes and, yes and, yes and you just keep going. I've been to Downing Street to invite conversation about the challenges of small businesses and companies of one. When I said yes and, I never saw that. I didn't see that, but because I said yes and, that's where I got to. So if we're in agreement that yes and is our trigger button, now we get to the fun part, which is choose your own adventure. Because as heavy as all of this is, life is fun. It has to be. You are on this journey until you're dead. You know, we've got to make the most of this. And so when you say yes and, all you have to do is choose. And I've got some starters for 10. Share joy. And to share joy, you have to experience joy. So get out, have fun, have conversations. I found a natural echo on Saturday. I've not been around an echo probably in 15 years, and that brought me joy. Amplify what matters. Share the causes and the organizations that mean something to you. Shine a light on them. But don't add to the apathy. So having just asked you to share, please be mindful of what you do, even if it's a word of warning. That clickbait is potent. Think of it like this. Every time you share that, you add to the sea of apathy, and that's what the blob wants. The more checked out we are, the more we're not paying attention. Don't share it. Instead, solutions and good news. If you see an article and you're like, ooh, instead of sharing it, go and find something that has nothing to do with that, but is the solution to that problem. It's a 1 for 1. For every one they put out, we got to put out one, at least. And commit. Commit to doing this every day. Commit to being an active participant in your own life, because if you do not, it will not be a long time before you are giving up choice And when you give up your right to choose, someone else will choose for you, and you may not like the result. And then finally, infect. We have got to spread this. We know what inspiration is capable of. It has committed the greatest atrocities that humanity's ever seen. What could happen if we could take that same kind of energy and put it out there about plastic in the trees? This is Folsom Field in Boulder, Colorado, and if you can see those women down at the front there, this is my alma mater, and I used to do that, and this is 50,000 people. And let me tell you, 50,000 people is loud, and it is energy, and it is amazing, and this is my vision for inspiration spaces, to have 50,000 people inspiring 50,000 people inspiring 50,000 people. Because the thing is, if we all just do what we can do, anything is possible. We do not have to boil the ocean to save the ocean. Excuse the climate-unfriendly pun, but it is true. We all have more power than we realize as individuals. We have to use it. And it always seems impossible until it's done. When Nelson Mandela was released from prison, he did an 8-city tour of the US, and Oakland Coliseum was one, and 8-year-old me was in the audience, and I have never been so bored in all of my life. I really did not want to be there. The significance was totally lost on me until I was an adult. I was like, oh my gosh, I was there. I remember hating that. But he never thought that he would be speaking to me, and I never thought I would be speaking to you, because this was really hard. This is really hard to do, to articulate a thought at a time when the world is changing all of the time. So if you take anything away from this, it's this. Inspiration is an act of resistance. Go out there and have fun.